My name is Sykosan, and I'm a 2D animator, freelancer, essentially. I live in London. I've been living here for a while, but I'm French and I studied animation in France. I started actually not in animation. I studied architecture and I graduated. But during these studies, I discovered animation. I have to say I was not connected to the world of art at all. So I was in a family that had no objection for me to study art, but there was no one to inspire me within my family to do that. So I was like a lot of people watching animation on TV, and when I was a teenager, 3D was becoming a big thing, and I had one of these early home computers when I could experiment with 3D and 2D. So I started pretty early on drawing on a computer with a mouse. There was no tablet back then, and doing a bit of 3D like that. That was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed experimenting, and but that was a hobby for me. I was interested in science, and I followed a more scientific path, let's say, and then that's how I went into architecture because there was a mixture of engineering and creativity and design, but I didn't know really whether I really wanted to be an architect. Anyway, I graduated, but during that last year, I started making a short film with a friend of mine completely just for fun. Again, I had no idea whether I was going to do animation in the future. And we were mixing techniques already. We were doing 3D backgrounds and 2D characters. I learned to animate. I had no equipment. I just drew on paper, and I had these semi-transparent paper that we used for architecture. It was good because it had that transparency, so I could animate and see a drawing before and after. I do draw some in betweens. That so I kind of just learned by myself and experimented. And as I was doing this for about a year after my studies, I thought there's got to be some schools out there that can teach me how to do this rather than just struggling so much. And so I found that there were some schools to study animation. So I applied for a couple of those, and I went there. I kind of some of them like one of them was the Goblins in Paris, and the Goblins is quite a famous school. They have great students coming out of there, but they teach more like the techniques of animation to be an animator. And I was more interested in actually making films. I wanted to write stories and that sort of thing. So I went to another school which is in Valence. It's called La Poudrière, and spent 2 years doing everything: writing storyboards, character design, even working with musicians and voice actors to make short films. But it's strangely, I never actually made my own film after that. I started working in the animation industry as an animator essentially, and I was regretting a little bit that I didn't study more the core essentials of proper animation. But nonetheless, I learned a lot during that school, and I learned a lot also on the job from other animators. And so I started a little bit in France. I worked on for a local animation studio, but that didn't last long because my wife to be was English, and we decided to go to London to see to explore more opportunities there. It was actually a good place for me for animation, but at the time I was more of a 3D animator still than a 2D animator. So I looked for work in 3D animation, and it was all the craze. 2D was kind of, to be fair, 2D was kind of dying out a little bit. You know, everybody was into Jurassic Park and maybe Pixar and that sort of thing. So 2D, the animation 2D was kind of on the back burner for a lot of studios. 3D was evolving very quickly. I started working for small studios, and over the years, I realized that I had to specialize a lot more and become more of an animator or more of a rig artist. It was hard to remain a generalist, and I wanted to remain to keep the ability to make a film on my own if I wanted to. And 2D animation still offered that option, and I made a conscious choice to concentrate on 2D animation and to take that path. So, and also I realized something. I realized that I could not be the best I could be at both if I kept doing both in a way. I just wanted to be really good. That's one of them, but I realized that I couldn't achieve that if I just took and kept doing both, or it was going to be harder anyway. So I thought, you know what, I want to be a great 2D animator. I'm going to try really hard to be better at 2D animation. And I also enjoyed illustration, so I was going to keep doing that. And that's what I did. I removed all the 3D content from my short reel, changed my career a little bit for a second time, I guess, in a way. And yeah, no, it paid off. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the freelancing in London. It's essentially advertising industry. There's a lot of commercials being made, and what I like about those is that they are short-term projects, so you get to change completely what you're doing every couple of months, or even after 2 weeks, and you're working on something different. I really enjoy that. It's a bit of a roller coaster because obviously jobs come and go, and there are periods where there's less work. So it's not for everybody. But I realized, quite soon that if I spent too much time on the same project, I would get a little bored, and I just needed to be excited and to keep doing that. So yeah, freelancing has been good for me. I've been doing this for about 20 years, and through my career, trying to sort of climb the ladder a little bit. At first, you're just doing the little shots that you're given, and little by little, doing a bit of storyboard, directing some shots, having a little team, and then eventually, I got to make a film. Finally, well, sort of. I worked for many different things like video games, music videos, web content, advertising, of course, a bit cinema, a bit TV series. But we got to that time of the pandemic, and it was a very interesting, strange time for 2D animation because of the pandemic and the COVID, everybody was stuck at home, and you couldn't put together a team of people to say do a typical music video of people dancing on the stage. You just couldn't do that anymore. So many artists and musicians decided to turn to animation and say, hey, I'm going to do everything with 2D animation because animators can work from home. It was going to be easier. And suddenly this summer of 2020 was super busy. We had two music videos to do pretty much at the same time, and I got to pitch for one of those two, and it was for Katy Perry, and she was going to release an album that summer. There was like 10 songs to be animated. I don't think she eventually animated all of them, but what's cool about it is that every one of her music videos was animated by a different animator with a different style. And I got to pitch on one of them. I won the pitch, and I was kind of free to create my story, create my designs, direct the whole thing. I put a little team together because we had a little bit of budget, but it was short. It's often the case. Not much time and not much money, but a lot of passion and a lot of love. We just went, completely into it. I really enjoyed the process, and that was nice because I got to direct this project and really being in control of the whole thing. In an ideal world, I would have liked to have a bit more time to develop the style, to make better animation. Maybe overall, we had to compromise a little bit, but the result was quite nice nonetheless. That's a personal success for me, not because of what I was doing, but because of who I was working with. You probably have some people you admire at some point in your career, and you're like, I would love to work with that person, or for that studio or something like that. You want to make it, you want to work for with Disney or Pixar, whatever dream you have. It was one of those things. There's this great animator called Robert Valley. He's Canadian and he has his own strong style, and people go to him for his own personal directing style. And I got to work with him on a episode for Love, Death and Robots. I was just one animator among a few, but it was nice working with him and see how he works. And the funny detail about this is that he animates in Photoshop, which is kind of a rare thing for 2D animators, and I also myself animate in Photoshop. It's not that Photoshop is a great app for that, but it kind of is a different approach, and we had that in common. So that means that when he was doing like a keyframe animation or a storyboard for me to work with, he would give me his Photoshop files, and I could work with that directly. Whereas all the other animators had to turn this into other files and then do back and forth and they use TV Paint, I think, in that series. But yeah, that was a fantastic opportunity for me. I'm still trying to grow. I'm still trying to do new things. And I'm getting to in a phase now where I would like to go back again to doing more personal content. So I'm trying to write my own stories and try to find ways of funding personal projects, animation projects. So last year, for example, I tried a Kickstarter for a short film, but it was a failure in the sense that couldn't get enough funding to make the project happen. But that's okay. I'm going to try again. I'm not going to stop there. And I learned a lot in the process. That was very interesting. So I'm going to change things next time I try and hopefully get something interesting. I also obviously started teaching as well. It's been about 3 years, 2 years, I'm not sure, 2.5 years maybe. And I mean, for CG Spectrum. So I really enjoyed that. This is really cool. It's a great environment, not just for the students, but for us as well as mentors. It's a great, it's a very nice way to teach, I find. That kind of gives me a little bit of both. I've got plenty of freedom to do what I still want to do and have a little bit of regular income to have a bit of stability. It's a nice thing to have as well. So it's a lovely balance for me. I'm hoping that I will be able to make a film, a personal film, soon in the future. My daily life, I work from home mainly, so I do spend quite a bit of time on social media. For example, for me, it's an important environment where I will find work. I will make contacts with clients, um, and so I have a bit of a routine where I try to create content to be alive and exist on social media because it's good to have a presence there. But at the same time, I spend time on personal projects. I have sort of a split the month in different sections. I try to have a particular project each week so that I can concentrate for a few days and keep doing the same thing and not being too distracted by too many projects. So I try to create a routine. I think it's very important to do that because I do so many different things. I need to make room for all of that. So I try to stick to my schedule.